Oh, of course they will. And we are now live. If you're just coming into the stream, I am your host, RJ Carter, Senior Managing Editor at class.com. And with me
I don't have any... Okay.
You there? We went live and Bill froze up. Oh, Bill. No, don't go freezing up on us now. We have Bill from Starcross Comics. You'll know him as @Grok Comics on Twitter. Oh, he moved.
Hello. Sorry, froze up for a minute there.
I saw that. I was worried about you for a minute. I thought the deep freeze had blown back in and just like the day after tomorrow, yeah. You know, just like it's like, oh, it's not his internet. It just really is frozen.
Thanks for having me.
I'm glad to have you on. I love to talk comics. I love to talk unusual setting comics because, you know, there's only so many different superhero universes you can have and so many different ways that you can explain how superheroes come in. DC Universe has no explanation. Everybody just had their own. Marvel's real big on the mutants. The DC television series has a dark matter explosion, although they've now found ways to give people superpowers before that ever happened, so that's a theory that's out the window. But Tribulation Taskforce, you have powers that come from a more divine source, so to speak.
Well, the premise of the book is that there's a future Antichrist that's going to come and be the world leader. And he has an appointed time to take over. And he decided he wants to be in power before God's appointed time. So this team assembles to stop him from ascending to power before his appointed time.
Okay, so they're not trying to stop him entirely. They're just saying, not yet, not yet.
Right, pretty much. And, you know, their first mission, which is going to be coming out in June, is going to be to go to the Vatican and rescue the Apostle John, who has never died and is being held by the Catholic Church.
Okay. He's seen some things.
He has. And it's interesting because there's one little verse in the Bible where Jesus is walking with his disciples and he's paying more attention to John, and Peter complains, and Jesus said, so what is it to you? What if I say John will never die until I return? What is that to you? And, you know, so I took that one verse, and that's kind of the premise of what John's never died. He's kind of been in the background of things.
I love verses like that where they're almost throwaways and nobody builds any theology on it. There's a verse in there about the resurrection that no one ever talks about that I've ever heard. When you know, it's always like, you know, the stone was rolled away. Jesus appeared on the road to Emmaus. Jesus appeared to Mary and Martha. But it says in one verse that, and there were others that rose, and it's like, right. And it walks away. And I was like, I'd love to hear some of those stories and write some of those. I had a novel that works about Barabbas, and I had decided that Barabbas was one of 3 political dissidents who was up for being executed, and of course he was let go in place of Christ, and that his partners in crime were Dismas and Gestas, who were the opposite, you know, other ends of the crucifixion day. And I was like, well, he's probably looking for them, and like, you know, he's like, he's alive. Everyone's seeing that this guy's alive. Somebody said that this guy's alive. Where are my buddies?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting. There are a lot of verses like that, little verses, like you said, like the one where there was dead that came to life that day. Not something you really hear people talk about or even emphasize that. It's kind of minor and compared to everything else. So I like the idea that they're a delaying tactic because, you know, you see movies like The Omen or The Prophecy, where it's like the Antichrist walks the earth. We must stop him. Well, why must you stop him? Because we are Christians and we're going to stop the Antichrist. Yeah. And I was like, no, this, if anything, okay, shilling time again. Not as Critical Blast, but as RJ Carter, I am blessed to be the writer on the Remo Williams series, The Destroyer. If you ever saw the 1985 movie, the Remo Williams, The Adventure Begins. Oh, really? Character. Yes. So cool. The first book I got to write, I always keep them right here because I always show them, was Bully Pulpit. And in Bully Pulpit, the bad guy is an honest televangelist
who is very devout in his beliefs. Like, I want a bad guy who's not a bad guy. He's operating for the greater good in his mind.
Right.
And his whole thing was that he's seeing Christians fall away and the flock getting lost. And he's like, well, gosh, dang it. If God had just returned yesterday, then this person would still have gone to heaven instead of, backsliding or relinquishing their religion or their faith or whatever. And more people are falling aside than there are coming in. So what I'm going to do is, and he's stumbled across this plausible doomsday scenario that Nikola Tesla came up with that could be done very cheaply for someone with, somewhat of a millionaire status. And he sets the plan in motion to basically destroy the world, crumble it. And he's like, if the world is going to be destroyed in an irreversible process, then God has no choice but to come back first. and that's his whole plan, is to save everybody. And he even quotes, the Apostle Paul. It's like, I'm committing genocide here. I am going to hell, but I would gladly go to hell that my brethren might be saved.
Right.
So it always got me that, Christians would be like, look, this is a sign of the end times. We can't let this stand. We must, like, no, you want more.
Right.
Suggesting things that.
Right. We exactly.
Like, it would be cool if we just all got a mark right here. We didn't have to carry credit cards. That would be great. Don't you guys think so? That would be perfect.
So yeah, they can't stop him, and they know they can't stop him. It's inevitable. It's kind of set in stone. So they're gonna slow him down. So what he does is he sets up his own team. He's the Speaker of the United Nations and puts together a team of supervillains who the world thinks are heroes. So to the world, they're heroes, and the heroes are the villains. So the world's going to think the Tribulation Taskforce are the terrorists, and the evil guys are actually going to be the heroes.
Well, of course, because they're expressing, fundamentalist beliefs.
Oh, yeah. God forbid.
Be more, yeah, exactly. So I got to imagine that, they're either very, very strong in their faith, or they've got to struggle with, the futility of the fact that we're just a delaying tactic here.
Yeah, and we haven't gotten that far. So far, we've had a few issues out. It's pretty much world building, background on what's going on, who the characters are. The first issue that's coming out in June is where they're actually going to go and rescue John. So that's as far as we're going to be in the story until next year, when the next few issues come out. But that is something they're gonna deal with. Like, if it's going to happen, what are we doing right now?
Exactly. They have superpowers, and how?
I'm sorry. They don't. One or two of them do, but for the most part, everything is electronically derived, or they have some kind of suit or something that mimics superpowers. The bad guys go through a process called the Red Baptism, which is basically they pledge their allegiance to Lucifer, and they get a demon placed inside of them, which gives them powers. But they lose their soul,
of course,
in the process.
That's part of the trade-off. I feel weird here talking about that kind of thing, because as Critical Blast Publishing, our next book, if you've seen our tweets, is an anthology called The Devil You Know, and it's all about people making deals with the devil. I was like, am I gonna be okay going into this one tonight?
Well, that's a good topic, because where else would you get things? I mean, even in the scriptures, Jesus is tempted by the devil. He's given all the kingdoms of the world. He's told he can have all of these things. So that's a very real thing. That's something you want to speak about or really, glorify, but that's what happens. If you look at some of the stuff about Hollywood and a lot of these people, they will say that a lot of them say they've done rituals, they've done things to, increase their fame or whatever, whether it's true or not, but that's kind of something that's embedded in our culture right now.
Well, theological basis, the world belongs to Lucifer. It's his domain. So when he's offering it to Christ, he had it to give.
Right.
To him. It was his to give over. So it's
exactly.
It's an interesting story. It was the first first story really of a deal with the devil being offered. It's like, hey, you know, give me your soul and I'll give you all of this stuff. And world would have been an entirely different place had that deal been accepted. Daniel Webster wasn't born yet, so you know there was no way to fight that one. So the ones who do have superpowers,
right?
Do they get them from God? I mean, is God
it would have been, and in the comic, I mean, if there's going to be some stories coming out that I'm working on now of the villains, and
Bill, I think you're freezing again.
Yep, I lost you there for a second. Sorry.
You said it was coming something about the villains.
Yeah, there's some stories coming. We have two books. One is Tribulation Taskforce. The other one is Tribulation Taskforce Parables. And Parables tells individual stories of the characters. And the villain issue comes up is going to show what kind of people it is that would actually accept that offer. And they do it for all different reasons, that seemingly valid reasons, to do something so awful to get the power that they want.
Sure. So the good guys, the ones that do have superpowers, are they imbued with power from on high? I mean, has God literally spoken to them as a character in your book?
The main character is the one who God has spoken directly to. And he has a spiritual gift of a prophetic gift. So he can, certain things he'll know is going to happen. And he'll take the team to do those certain things. And he has an insight into people. So when he chooses people to, be part of the team, he already knows something about them or has a sense about them. And there's one other character called Flame Shot. He has a flaming head. And he has powers because he was experimented on. Kind of a Marvel Comics kind of origin.
Okay.
But most of them don't have powers.
Are all of the good guys, are they all believers? Or are there some who are, not believers, but coming towards that because of what they see and what they've experienced?
I guess one of the things I'm not really touching on too much is having it be very preachy. So it might allude to the fact that they have their faith, but the core of the book is really a superhero book. So the kind of the Christian part and all that is kind of the backdrop. And for some of the stories, we explore that. But for the most part, that's kind of off the table. It's not really a big centerpiece of the book. But
so it's not left behind with capes.
It's what?
It's not left behind with capes.
It's not.
Okay. And I would guess that this is this would be a pre-rapture.
It is. The book, we have Secret Files #1, which is like stories of individual characters and a little bit of a background of what's going on for people who don't know the theology. And the book actually begins with the characters all being defeated by Apollyon, who's the Antichrist, and the rapture occurring. And he gets pissed off because he's ready to kill Grok, the main character, and then he disappears. And that starts the rapture happens and the Christians are all gone.
Well, at least nothing stands in his way now. He can take his seat.
Exactly.
You'd think he'd have been a patient man, says, okay, I'm here. I'm just kind of biding my time. And the Antichrist, in addition to devil contracts that have permeated literature through decades and centuries, the Antichrist is like second fiddle in that kind of realm. He's one that gets a lot of good stories too. Like to mention the Omen. Have you read Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett's Good Omens?
I have not. I didn't like the concept of it, so I didn't want to even support it.
I get that. Yeah, it's interesting, but the whole idea of them. Well, with the Omen, obviously they had like the child born of a jackal,
right?
Substitute to the ambassador's son, and blah 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 blah. Well, it's the same deal going on here, only that there's a third unplanned delivery at the same time. Somebody just pulls over pregnant, and it's a shell game, and they lose the Antichrist. So he gets raised normal with a middle class family, and this normal kid is raised in this ambassador's home where there's a gardener who's like Saint Francis of Assisi trying to sway him one way, and his nursemaid who says that no, creatures are made for you to step on and put under your thumb, and he's just like, okay, whatever, I'm just a kid.
Right. And things like the Omen was a big influence. The Omen, Left Behind, and there were some old movies in the 70s. It's a Thief in the Night,
Thief in the
Left,
Night.
yeah, Distant Thunder. There's a whole bunch of these movies that they used to show in church. So all of that kind of influenced the book because I love that end time theology. It was one of my areas that I studied. So it's a big, thing for me.
So I was going to ask you, what is your study that feeds this series? What drives it all?
Basically those movies, and I'm a youth pastor and a therapist, so using all the people that I've kind of dealt with and the things I've learned, kind of all that gets incorporated into the book. So it's a little therapeutic for me.
Okay, in this world that you're building here temporarily, because it's not going to last very long. Were there superheroes before that were just superheroes? I mean, is the world...
There were.
Okay.
And our numbers...
Seeing these super characters is not a new thing for people to say, whoa, signs and wonders.
No, they're the last generation of superheroes. That's kind of how the book is built. So in our 0 issue, there's actually a history of, super people in the world. So it starts with, there's David and Goliath, there's Samson. So some people from the Old Testament. And then it goes on to the Roman Empire, where there was a crusader character who, went against the tyranny of the Roman Empire. And then, in the 70s and 80s, there were some characters. In the 50s, there were characters. In the 70s and 80s, there were characters. And then nothing until this point now.
Okay.
So it goes through like a broad strokes of what went on.
So the not necessarily superheroes, but the characters that we know of from history and theology, like you said, Samson and
right,
ones who perform miracles
until the 50s. Then there's some public domain characters that we used in there, and a couple that we made up. So there's this 50s, 45 team that goes out and helps with the Nazis, and then they're traumatized, so they all give up at the end of World War II.
Okay. The greatest generation of superheroes, Black Terror and Airboy and all those guys.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them. Atom Man, Atomic Thunderbolt, Miss Fury, a bunch of them are in there.
Okay. So how many characters, and let's just go through some of them. Let's go through the good guys and the bad guys. As far as what makes them unique and what's going to draw the reader's attention to them.
Okay. Well, we have the Apostle, who's going to be one of the main characters, and he's the Apostle John, who walked with Jesus. And I based him a lot on Rob Liefeld's character, Prophet. He's kind of, strong guy. He's a warrior, and he's going to take a big lead in there. And we have Man of War, who was a character from the 40s, who was a public domain character. And he's one of the ones that retired in the 50s, and he's going to be there training kind of the new heroes. He's kind of a gruff, I really don't want to do this. I should be retired, but he's going to train the heroes.
Okay.
And then we have Flameshot and Pink Spade, who are a couple. They're husband and wife. And they have a character called Blue Flame. And Blue Flame is in our 0 issue. He is their son, but he's pissed off, so he's going to join Apollyon's group. So there's this tension of, we raised our son, and now he's with the Antichrist. Is he going to take this baptism and be lost forever? So that starts in the 0 issue. It's alluded to in issue 1, and then in issue 2, they're going to go try to get him back. So that's kind of the subplot that's running through the first few issues.
So you're setting up a redemption arc of possibility there for
possibly
for a bad guy to become redeemed. Yeah.
And I'm not sure. I haven't decided yet. I'm kind of writing it now, so see where the story takes me. He might or he might not.
Yeah, sometimes the characters don't tell you what they're going to do in advance.
Right. It's kind of, I'm playing it by ear, so I don't know what's going to happen yet.
Cool. So you've got a couple of different, the main series, and I guess a couple of different one-shots, offshoots. You've got the Taskforce itself.
Right.
You've got Parables. I seem to recall there was another one.
Yeah, Parables is the one that's on Kickstarter right now. And then we have Secret Files. And that's like a who's who meets mini, there's like one-page stories, journal entries from Grok's journal, and then profile pages.
And the Kickstarter is wrapping up tonight. Are you, obviously, I can't go to the page right now or I will freeze up. But are you close? Have you met the goal?
I have met the goal. So now it's just gravy. It should be on my screen right now. So there we are. There's some the covers of the book and some pages from the book. And it's actually a flip book. The second side of the book is these characters, the Silent Knights, and it's written by Joe Spicer, who is the head of Starcross Comics. So it was kind of cool to collaborate with him on that.
Okay, so Starcross then is more than just you.
Yeah, oh yeah. Starcross is the publisher, and we have a ton of books. There's superhero books. There's fantasy, historical comics. They've been around for over 20 years now, and have some really, really high quality indie books.
Now, are all your books, I guess, direct distributed to the backers and people who buy them online, or are they going to go through Diamond?
Not through Diamond yet. That's kind of in the works, but for now, it's pretty much just the crowdfunding and through our website.
All right,
and
cool.
It's a little easier that way, to avoid all the nonsense, get it straight to the customer, and be able to produce it and just get it out there quickly.
And get it to them undamaged, since you don't have to go through Diamond.
Yeah, that too.
All right. Let's see what else we got here. I'm kind of playing it by ear here because I'm like, this is interesting enough here that I'm just going to throw questions out there and it will come to me. Do you have? Obviously, there is a defined end. You started with it on page 1. You even said there,
right,
where it all happens. Do you have a timeline planned out for making all this happen? Do you know when your last issue is, or are you just going to say, yes, we're delaying
I don't.
him,
it's
but
just
it could be 20 years.
Right. When I get sick of writing it, I'm going to end it. So far, I'm enjoying it. Tons of stories. My only problem is money. If I could pay the artist to draw all the stories I have, I'd have a ton of books out, but that's kind of the roadblock right now. Thank God for crowdfunding.
And that's something I brought up to crowdfunders before, largely for the benefit of the people who are backing the books, is that, if you're a writer doing a comic book, you're already starting out in the hole when you start crowdfunding, because you have to already paid the artist to have art to show. And if you don't meet your goal, well, you can't even distribute the comic at that point.
Right. And what I try to do is, before I distribute the comic, it's pretty much all penciled and inked and just needs to really be colored and lettered. So that's the least of the, amount of funds that I need. So by the time the crowdfunding campaign is done, it's another 30 to 60 days and then the books are out. So we've been really, really good on making sure when we do a campaign, at no more than 60 days before that book goes out.
That's excellent. And you've got, how many of you crowdfunded so far?
I've crowdfunded 1, 2, 3, 4 books. And we've had 7. I've had personally 7 campaigns, and they've all been fulfilled within 30 to 60 days.
That's important for everybody catching the replay on this one. If you're not sure about your investment, right now everybody's looking for people who have got a history of fulfillment, which is making it a little harder on the new people coming in, because of some people who have either, no one knows why they couldn't fulfill, it was bit off more than they could chew, but people are a little gun shy now. So seeing a series where you've got a history of fulfilling on time with a quality product, that's going to go a long ways with people, I think.
Well, there's been a lot of campaigns which baffled me. Have made $20,000, $30,000, and they couldn't fulfill the campaign. How do you not? Well, I mean, where did all that money go? I mean, if I make $3,000 total on a campaign, I'm dancing and singing. I have enough to pay everybody and get the book printed and work on the next book. So I don't understand how you make all of this money. And like Cyberfrog, I think it took a year to fulfill. And this is a tried and true DC artist who's done monthly books, and it takes a year, and you've made $100,000.
I'm not sure why that one took so long.
It blows my mind.
We at least saw there was progress being done on it, but I think there was just maybe a little too much YouTubing and a little less drawing going on.
Right. And I mean, that's so unfair. I mean, you show the book, people get excited, they pledge all this money, and then you're just like, whatever. To me, that's just so disrespectful. I mean, things happen. Sometimes people fall ill, whatever, and the book gets late. But come on, a year?
And I think he realizes that too, because he's spoken to that with the next book, and he's trying to get that one out. He's made a promise to have that one out by Christmas, because last time he didn't put a deadline on it. It was just like, hey, I'm doing this thing, and it's, oh crap, it's making money. I've really got to do this thing now. Probably was the take on that. But you're right. I've seen Kickstarters that have gone on for 6 years unfulfilled.
You look at Liefeld. I mean, did Brigade a long time ago and did additional campaigns, and the book never came out. I'm like, it's a 32-page book, or it might not even been that. It might have been a 24-page book, and you couldn't get that out. I mean, come on. It's just, it makes everybody's job harder when you do that, because Liefeld can afford to say, piss it off and say, whatever, but small people like Starcross, I mean, we need every backer and we need their confidence, or we can't continue doing books.
And a lot of them too probably go for a bigger name artist, which is going to require them to pay out a higher page rate.
Right.
Whereas if you work with an indie artist, or the best ones out there are the people where the artist is part of the creative team and he's invested in the crowd fund rather than somebody who's contracted to do the book for something.
Right. And it's hard because a lot of the artists that I've run into, they don't want to be part of the book. Pay me, tell me what to draw, I'll draw it, and let's be done. So you run into that too. There's not a whole lot of ownership. It's kind of like, here, I just need the money, pay me, and I'll draw whatever you want. So it takes some of the fun out, because artists always are saying they want this, they want to be able to be creative, and they don't want this, a script that's solid and telling them what to draw. And the times when I haven't, the artists are like, well, what do I draw? I'm like, well, you're the artist. Shouldn't you be creative? So it's kind of a,
need a little art direction, but yeah. And, it goes back to the whole, at one time there was a kerfuffle over work for hire. I created this thing, but now they own it, and now it's with the artist is like, I don't want to own it. I just want to draw it and get paid and be done.
Right.
So you kind of it's kind of a lottery in a way that where if you were to say, I'll invest myself as part of the book and share in the profits, you could end up with something that brings in $3,000 and you're like, well, okay, I kind of broke even. You could end up with something that doesn't fulfill at all, or you could end up on something that's like the next, the next, what am I thinking of? Lost Souls or something.
Right.
Brings in a couple of $100,000.
Right.
And
it's good that we have people like Dan Fraga, who's doing a book. I mean, he's a moderately well-known person. He's been in the industry for so long, and when people like that crowdfund, it kind of brings attention to everybody else. Some of the people who might not have ever checked out Kickstarter or Indiegogo, now they're looking for Dan Fraga, and they're exposed to this other world of comics that's not Marvel and DC. So it's kind of nice to see those big guys come in and do some crowdfunding.
Now, did you have the idea?
Definitely changes the playing field.
Yeah. Did you have the idea for Tribulation Taskforce before crowdfunding was an option?
I actually had written this treatment for Rob Liefeld. He had message boards years ago, and used to talk back and forth. And I came up with this treatment for his heroes where the character Prophet had died at one point, and where God had spoken to him and wanted him to come back and let him know that some of these characters, like there's a character named Glory, who's like the daughter of some gods. Well, she's really going to be the enemy, because when things happen, she's going to side with the pagan gods over someone like you. So it was going to be this whole thing where the universe gets split in half, and actually, of course, it never went anywhere. So I took that and adapted it years later. I was actually doing a job. I was in between jobs, and I was doing a job doing what was it? Insurance, answering insurance questions.
Oh,
And I
exciting
would
work.
horrible. I would sit on the phone, and while these people are, yelling at me, I would have paper and I'd be drawing out these characters, like ignoring the people. And so after a while, I had like 20 characters. And there's this thing on Facebook called the Arena, where this guy Gilbert Monsanto draws your characters, and they go up for vote, and people vote on the character they like the best. So Joe Spicer, who's the head of Star-Crossed Comics, saw him and said, "Hey, you should do something with these characters." And I kind of gave him my idea, and he said, "Okay, well, come with us and do the book." And so, kind of haphazardly, I said, "Okay, I'm going to do a comic book."
Sure.
And I was able to brush that off, and yeah, it was kind of just like, yeah, okay, I'll do that.
And now the rest is history.
It is. I've been collecting since I was like 12, and I'm 49 now. So, it's late in the game that I never thought I'd do a comic. I just enjoy reading them. I didn't want to be bothered. And then I'm like, this is actually kind of fun. I'm going to put my hat in the arena and see what happens.
I can't see myself doing that, but yeah, I started reading before kindergarten because of comic books. And I didn't let anybody know I could read until first grade. And then it was sort of a thing where the teacher in first grade had one of the big flashcards up in front of everybody, and she's reading it very slowly, pointing out all the words, and I'm just like,
Oh, that must have been torture.
Yeah, and she's like, "Would you like to read to the class?" Being I'm too young to get sarcasm.
Yeah.
So I just looked up at the card and said, "Plants create energy through a process called photosynthesis, in which they take in sunlight through cells filled with chlorophyll." Second grade reading class next day. And I was like, boy, I should have kept my big mouth shut. But yeah, I've collected since then. I've sold since then. I've replenished the stock since then.
Oh, wow.
So
have you converted to digital yet, or are you still
I will never convert to digital.
Okay. I'm with you on that one. No digital.
I'm the ancient Egyptian kids who are sitting there saying, "Papyrus, you're going to write on papyrus? I like my clay wall here. Look, it'll never go away. It's right here. Just come to the wall and read it again."
Well, there's something great about having it in your hand and flipping the pages and holding it and not having this glare and eye strain. It's kind of a nice thing.
And I like to go to conventions, and I'm not going to have a bunch of signatures on my iPad.
Right.
I like to just sign my physical book that I will then never read again, probably, and put another.
Right. Store it like I'm a hoarder.
Experience. You control the speed of the reading. You don't get that through a comicsology book where they present each panel to you in the order they want you to see them.
Right.
It's crossed over too much into animated cartoon at that point.
Or even a PDF. Then it's just even harder to maneuver it, and I'd rather have the book there. And like you said, you own something. For my $4, $5, I actually own something.
Yes.
Unlike digital, where it's nothing.
You own the right to the thing, but if the digital hosting company decides to pack up and close down, you own nothing now.
Right.
Like all these movies I've got that come with my digital code. As soon as one of them decides, as soon as they all, I guess, decide to shut down, because usually one shuts down and the other one buys them up and you transfer. But yeah, there could be a day where I can log in and have nothing to watch.
Right. Yeah, I'm not big on the digital thing. And I know in this new kind of era, the kids, they laugh at me because I buy MP3s. They're like, "Why would you buy the music?" I'm like, to some extent, I want to own it. I don't really own it, but at least it's physically on my hard drive, since I don't want CDs anymore. But, you stream it and you don't have anything. Like they don't have this sense of ownership anymore. It's like, yeah, I'll just stream it for free and read the books online. And
reading a book, I kind of get away with, but reading a comic book's not the same thing for me.
Yeah, I don't even like reading books online. I like having it in my hand and putting it on the shelf and
Yes.
kind of having something. Right, right.
I always wanted to make sure, that when I die, I leave behind a library.
Yeah.
Be my son's
So someone has to throw it away.
Yeah. That'd be a yard sale is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
They take it all to Savers and dump it in the bin. I just told him, said, make sure you open each one first and look at the front page, because if it's signed, you might want to put it on eBay.
Right.
All right. So, Bill, this is the last day for the Kickstarter. So I'm going to assume that in 30 to 60 days, people who have backed this book are going to start getting their copies.
Absolutely.
Have you got any feedback? I mean, if you're still selling books, people must be coming back for more.
They are. There's a lot of people who have bought the book kind of reluctantly, but just doing it to be nice, and have read it and been like, oh, this is not what I thought. It gets this reputation that it's this ultra preachy, doctrinal, theological book. And when they read it, they're like, oh, it's a superhero book. Like, yeah. It's just a superhero book, Well,
when people think about Christian comics, you've only got really two examples. You've either got the Spire Archie comics, which also did Hal Lindsey's The Late Great Planet Earth. Or you've got Jack Chick Traps.
Jack, yes. Neither which I want to represent.
Yeah.
Because he's a little extreme on most fronts.
But yeah, they were definitely preachy and edgy, and he got people talking.
And that was their purpose. So, he accomplished what the purpose was. The purpose of this is just to have superhero books, written from a Christian worldview. So there's not going to be swearing in it. There's not going to be any sex in it or things like that. You could give this to anybody of any age and they won't be too offended, hopefully.
Right. But you also don't have the scenes where you're like, okay, we have saved you from this, but you're still going to hell unless you, and then you have a whole page there where they explain the sinner's prayer in great detail and walk through it. And he kneels and gets up and says, I feel so relieved.
Right. It's not cheesy. It's not Bible Man or what's the one, Veggie Tales. I mean, it's, it's a superhero comic, but it definitely reflects my Christian worldview. Okay,
well, absolutely perfect. That sounds like something that is a great alternative to what's out there right now, because Christian worldview or not Christian worldview, a lot of the stuff's just simply not family friendly, and how you get a more clear-cut bad guy than the son of the devil or his agent on earth.
Right.
All my bad guys have become explained away into good guys, because Magneto is like, well, yeah, but he feels this way because of this and the way he was treated, and he's just really trying to think right. And Lex Luthor,
they're very sympathetic.
Alien invasion.
Well, and Lex Luthor was in a Justice League for a while.
Yes,
so I was like, what? Like, I like that some of the characters, and Marvel does a good job at some of their villains get kind of redeemed, like the Sandman for a while. It was on the Avengers. He had this redemption arc, and it was really cool to see that. I think you need it every once in a while.
Well, yeah, but there's a difference between a redemption arc and an explain it away arc.
Right. Oh, well, Magneto's telling people, mutants are your god now. Like, okay. Yeah, they've turned him into a weird
perception of it.
Yeah, it's interesting because in that book right now, you don't know who the villains are. The X-Men are acting completely out of character. Professor X is just pretty wicked. And, and they have all the villains there who are, it's a real interesting book. I don't know where Hickman's going with it, but he's definitely blurred the lines between what's good and what's bad, which is really reflects the world we're living in right now. There are no moral absolutes in the world we're living in.
Which I don't know if that's good for comics or bad for comics, but what always drove superhero comics was, to quote Mark Waid, through the mouth of Superman, there's a right and there's a wrong, and the distinction is not difficult to make. Right.
Well, and now that's, especially in Marvel, I don't know what Marvel's doing, but everything is just blurred. They're more concerned about having, transgender heroes and all of this other kind of stuff and preaching their ideology. So it makes the comics really not fun when you have all this stuff kind of thrown at you and forced on you.
It's become less good versus evil and more my ideology versus your ideology.
Right. And that's not why we read comics. You read comics to a certain extent to have a fun escape from, I could turn on Fox News and or CNN and hear enough nonsense. I don't want to read a comic and hear more real world stuff. I want to not deal with that.
I agree. It's a place to escape.
Right.
All right, Bill, it's been a pleasure. We're going to follow the Kickstarter tomorrow and see how things work out. And definitely
thank you so much.
More work from you. When you get the next Kickstarter ready to go, please do hit us up. We'll be happy
I will.
to have you and talk some more about this.
Thank you. And I just want to encourage everyone to check out Starcross Comics at starcrosscomics.com. There's tons of great stuff and some great creators there.
I'll add the link to the description as soon as we get out of here.
Great. Thank you so much for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Bill. Same here.
Okay. Bye-bye.